Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. I'm thrilled to have you join us today. And I am Wendy Rose Williams. I'm a past life energy healer, and I help people release the energy that's not serving them, whether it is chronic pain, anxiety, depression, or just feeling stuck, like you cannot get out of second gear. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com, and you can visit it to see how we might be able to work together. And I would love to introduce my wonderful co-host at this point, and Gregg Kirk is going to talk you through the services that he has to offer and a little bit about the background. And then he's going to introduce our incredible, really special guest that we have with us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. You can come see me at my website, which is my name, Gregg Kirk, GreggKirk.com. I'm an energy healer. I'm a Lyme disease advocate. I have a Lyme disease recovery clinic in Connecticut, but I help patients. I help patients with Lyme disease counseling all over the world. You can contact me through my website, click on the appointment request link, and I also do energy healing at a distance and in person, and run weekly online group healing circles through my events link. You can check those out on my website. So today, Wendy, let's pull up our deck and talk about our guest.
So we have a website, wakingupspiritually.com, which is one of the ways that you're able to listen to this broadcast, as well as via your favorite podcast apps. And we go live on YouTube, typically the second Monday of the month at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5:30 Eastern. And I'm just so thrilled that Dave Sanderson is able to join us. And Dave is a really special guy. He went through a very unique experience 16 years ago that we're going to get to hear about firsthand. And why don't you walk us through, Gregg, some of Dave's background?
Yeah, so Dave is a nationally recognized leadership speaker, an accomplished author, and an inspirational survivor of what is well known as the Miracle on the Hudson experience. He was the last passenger off of USAirways Flight 1549, which had to ditch into the Hudson River. He took the lessons he learned from that profound experience to encourage others to do the right thing and share coping skills to address any adversity they might face. He now travels the globe on a personal mission to share his life lessons, to show the importance of not only setting goals, but also achieving them, and sharing his passion for helping others who are longing for connection and community. He's named one of Inc.com's top 100 leadership speakers. He travels the world to share his inspirational lessons, and he's raised $14.8 million for the American Red Cross over the last 10 years. And he is author of the book Limitless. Let's bring our guest in today, Dave Sanderson. Here we go.
And Dave's actually the author of several books. So, in addition to The Limitless Life, he also wrote Moments Matter, as well as From Turmoil to Triumph. So, welcome, Dave. We're so thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I'm proud to be with you today. Thank you.
And what I think would help the listeners the most is just take us back in time so that fateful flight of Flight 1549 USAirways back on January 15th, 2009. So it's more than 16 years ago. And I bet in some ways it might still feel as fresh as a moment ago. I'm so interested in hearing what you have to share. But Dave, can you tell us a little bit what life was like before that flight? Where were you going? Were you meant to be on that flight? Did you fly regularly? What was life like? Were you married? Did you have children? What did you do for work? Where were you living? Kind of give us a
Wow.
background.
Let's see if I can get all that in. So yes, I thank you very much, Wendy. So yes, I was married. I am still married, and with 4 children. I was living in Charlotte. I was a sales executive for a company, so I was traveling quite frequently. That week, candidly, I started that week on a Tuesday in Sarasota, Florida. Then we went to Petersburg, Virginia, the next day we were working in a manufacturing plant, and that night we packed up, headed to New York City because the next morning we were going to be in Brooklyn to be working in a distribution center. And so, and I don't know if anybody's ever worked in a distribution center. They open up very early in the morning because that's when the trucks have to run. And we were doing systems and technology checks for what we're doing. So we need to be there early to watch the runs and how this thing was working out. So our day started about 5. So we got done about 10. And, my strategy back then, I flew so much. My strategy was always book the last flight out because you never know how the day's going to go, and it gives you time in case something just happens, right? So I was excited. We got done at 10 o'clock. So I called our travel agent, worked with her, and she put me on USAirways Flight 1549. I was not supposed to be on that flight.
Oh, wow.
I gave up a first class seat at 5 o'clock for seat 15A on Flight 1549 on January 15th.
Oh, wow. A lot of numerology going on there.
A lot of numerology. And I didn't even realize that until I was in Las Vegas, and a young lady came up and broke it down for me. So that was a whole other story. But I wasn't supposed to be on that flight. So, and it was 11 degrees and snowing that day in New York City. But that's not that big a deal. It happens all the time, right? The flights were delayed, and anybody's ever been out on LaGuardia, flights are delayed all the time, especially if there's weather. So no big deal. And I was one of the first set of passengers to board the plane because of my status, because I flew so much. So I was one of the first boarding groups. And so as I was crossing through first class, I actually looked over at the seat that I was supposed to have. I'm like, for the first time, I started thinking, man, how often do you have to fly to get that seat that I always had, right? It's like, you have to fly a lot. So I went back to my seat 15A, and, no big deal. I did exactly what I did every single time when I got on a plane. And I tell people what I probably hallucinate what everybody does when they get on a plane because they don't pay attention. I didn't know where the exits were. I didn't read the brochure. I didn't pay attention to the flight attendants. I do now. And, I just picked up a magazine, started reading. So, normal business day, right? No big deal. And then all of a sudden, about a minute into the flight, then we heard an explosion. And that's when you knew something had happened. But I've been on planes before that have lost engines. And from seat 15A, I was in the left row. I looked out and you can see fire coming out from underneath the left wing. So, I know something happened, but it's not that big a deal because we got another engine, right? We're just going to go back. I'm not going to get home early. No big deal. But I tell people that's why I think God's grace entered for the first time in the flight, because no one on that plane knew at that moment what happened on the left side of the plane where we were, also happened on the right side of the plane at the same exact second.
Wow.
So we all just heard one big boom. So I believe that most of the people thought the same thing I was thinking. It's like, okay, we got another engine. No big deal. But now the plane's incapacitated, no engine, right? No power. And, you got to start making decisions, right? And as he started banking and I looked out, I saw the skyline of Manhattan was right out my window. And, I'd never been that close to the skyline of Manhattan. I don't know if anybody else has, but, when you're quickly descending and the skyline's right there and you see it outside the window, it's like, whoa. And then I looked out a little further and you can see this big bridge coming up. And it was the George Washington Bridge. You're like, never seen that before. And then all of a sudden you hear the captain say the only words he said the entire time. This is your captain, brace for impact. And that's the moment you knew something serious was happening, because the only way he was going was down, because the only thing you saw in front of you was water. And that's when I tell people that it was time to check in. People say, what did you do? I said, the first thing it is I prayed. I prayed, whoever that dude is up front, just get me down, right? Get me down. Second thing I prayed for is the last person I spoke with, my clients up in Brooklyn. They called my wife and reassured that I still loved her. And the third thing is I prayed to God to forgive my sins. I don't want anything between me and God at this point. We're going down. I want to go up, and it's not looking good at this point for me. And then I reached down and got my wallet out and shoved it down into my pants so someone could identify me. Because my thought process was, I'm not coming back. I don't know if you've ever seen planes that go down in water, but traditionally it's not a good scene.
Right.
It's not a good scene. So that's what happened to me. And I put my head down. It was about 60 seconds after we crossed over the bridge when we crashed into the river. And so it was, then now you have a whole different situation. You got down, you're alive, but now you get in a plane sinking in water, 36-degree water. And that's when.
Can I just stop you right there? Did you even have a chance to be scared? Like, after that explosion and then you putting your wallet down your pants? I mean, in that flash of time, did you have time to be scared?
It's a great question. I tell people, and the first interview I did for a magazine, it was a Reader's Digest magazine, for Rick Warren, and he interviewed me, and he asked me that question. I said, number one, I don't know if I had time to have that, but second, with my faith, I knew either I was going to go home or I was going to heaven. So it was really calming. And I think the thing that really was sort of made it that way is, people ask me, what's that last moment like? You're about 60 seconds away from potentially dying. You know it. You can't do anything about it. And I tell people what happened to me. I know everybody had their own situations. What happened to me was I saw the movie of my life pass before my eyes. I saw things from my past, those defining moments, right? Where that big play you made in high school, and when you met your wife and you have your kids, and that big sale, those big defining moments. And that's what all of a sudden I saw in my mind. That 60 seconds was the slowest 60 seconds. People tell you that too. I mean, it's true. When you're ready to die.
Elastic. That was going to be one of my questions for you. Was if time went elastic at all?
Exactly. And it's hard for people to understand that unless you've been through it. But people say 60 seconds. Whoa, that's fast. It was fast, but for us, it was like eternity.
Yeah.
Right. Because something's going to happen. And then I'm seeing things in my mind. Right. So I had my faith. I tell people my faith actually served me extremely well, because I knew that something good was going to happen either way. And the last thing that I thought before we went down was, I hope my wife pays off the house. Because the one thing we promised each other is to pay off this house. And now she'll have the money to pay off the house, right?
I love the practicality.
Yeah, I told her that. She goes, I would have paid off the house. Because I said, I told your dad if something happened to me, make sure her dad told her to pay off the house. So it was already set up with her dad. But yeah, that's how we got into the water. Now you have a whole different set of circumstances.
So what happened next? Did you? So what was that? Was that impact just incredible? Because I believe it was like at 140 miles an hour. I mean,
he estimates he hit 120 miles an hour. That's true. So it was a very hard hit. So it was a jarring hit, and fortunately all of us had our seatbelts on. So fortunately everybody paid attention to that. And so my recommendation, anybody who's listening today, pay attention, right? You never know, especially with what's going on lately.
Yeah.
Pay attention. But yeah, so it was a jar. I went back and forth in my seat a couple of times. And then when I came up, I opened my eyes and I saw light out the window. So I knew I had a shot, but now you've got another situation. You've got water coming in immediately. Because if you saw how the plane landed, I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of it. It hit backside first, and then started skidding. Well, the backside actually broke off, and the water started coming in immediately. So as soon as I looked up and looked out the window, water was already anywhere from ankle to knee deep immediately.
Wow.
So now you got another situation. Now you got to get out, right? You got to get out. And, I grew up playing sports and athletics. And when I played sports and athletics, and even in business, I always have a game plan. You don't go into a game without knowing what some things you're going to do, right? So my game plan was, as we were going down, I kept saying in my head, aisle up, out, aisle up, out, aisle up, out, because if I could ingrain that in my body, I knew exactly if I survived, I would go to the aisle, get up, and get out. So that was my game plan. Okay. So, when it was my turn, I got to the aisle, my game plan was to go up and out. But that's when the moment that everything changed for me. That was my moment, because what happened in that moment is I heard my mom start speaking to me. My mom passed away in 1997, but there's something she would tell me when I was a child that popped into my head. And it is, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And I heard that in my head from my mother. And I remember her telling me that when I was a kid. And I tell people, one of the great things about my mother, and I'm not as good as my mother, and my wife is not as good as my mother and my father were, because I think one of the greatest gifts my parents gave me was you had the ability to make a decision. I don't think we do that enough as parents these days. Make our kids make a decision, have consequences for the decision. So I tell people, she said, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. She's not telling me to do it. She said, whatever the right thing is for me. Right. And the right thing for me was you help other people first. And I grew up in a small town outside Cincinnati, Ohio, where everybody knew everybody and everybody took care of everybody. So instead of going up and out, I climbed over the seats to go towards the back of the plane, see if anybody needed help. And things were moving pretty quickly back there. I mean, you got to remember, now you're in the back of the plane where water's coming in heavily. Water's about chest level deep. And based on that impact, those bins have broken open. So now you got luggage floating in the water. And you got to remember, this is late afternoon New York in winter. which
Yeah.
means what? Dark.
Well, wasn't
Dark inside the plane.
the
Yep.
water must have been freezing cold too?
And you don't feel the water. That's the one
Okay.
thing that's amazing. You don't feel because you have the adrenaline. And I
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people about this because I was in the 36-degree water for over 7 minutes.
Wow.
I should be dead just from
Right.
that.
Yes.
But they said the adrenaline, right? The adrenaline will
Yeah.
keep you warm.
Yeah.
So, so I got behind the last person and I was making my way out. And the first light that I saw was on the right side of the plane at 10F. So I'm out of here, time to go. And I start stepping out, and all of a sudden, there's no room on the wing or the boat for me. They were already filled up.
Mm.
But people are already being rescued. I think
people were standing on the wings.
Staying on the wings and in the little lifeboat. Just filled up, no room for me.
Okay.
That's why I was inside the plane waist deep in 36-degree water for 7 minutes.
Wow.
Until something happened. There are two things that happened that are very significant.
Okay.
First thing was when I was actually holding on to the lifeboat because the lifeboat was floating out into the river.
Mm.
Now people say, why are you doing that? Well, I don't know if anybody knows anything about the Hudson River. I learned a lot about it. It's got an extremely fast current. That flat lifeboat was floating out into the river as the plane was floating down the river. See, the plane floated down the river about a half a mile in 24 minutes.
Wow.
Because that plane was floating down the river, that lifeboat was floating out into the river.
Yeah.
And so they were yelling, hold on. So I was holding on to the lifeboat, waist deep in 36-degree water. Now I looked out and something caught my eye. It was a lady on the wing who wasn't moving. Mm. And I tell people, I do this for my business talks. I mean, you probably get people in situations, you see them, things are moving so fast, they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. They go shocked, right? They go in that shock. Yeah. And that's not good when you're in a situation like this. You got to keep moving. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's standing in the middle of a wing and people are trying to get around her and, she's not moving. So all the training that I've had, you got to do something radical to sort of snap them out of it. So I just started yelling at this lady and she heard me. And somebody helped her on a lifeboat. And I said, also you see people walking down a wing. And I tell people from my perspective, as I was looking at it, looked like people were walking on water. It was an unbelievable sight.
Wow. How old was this woman who froze up?
Probably late 20s, early 30s. Okay. Right. Young lady that she was by herself.
Okay.
Standing in the middle of the wing and didn't know what to do. And I understand. I mean, one of the things you learn out of a situation like this, you learn not to judge people because you don't know their backstory. You don't know where they're coming from. And some people are judging people. And I'm like, I don't know where she came from. Right. Maybe she has some backstory that caused her just to lock up. You don't know. So don't judge people until you know their backstory. It's one of the things I talk about.
Well, even me, I was thinking, it's probably an elderly person who just kind of panicked. No, it was a young woman in her 20s. I mean, you never know what's going to
happen. We only had one elderly person on this plane.
Wow.
She was in the last row. She was in a wheelchair. She didn't want to leave. And fortunately, her daughter and another lady basically said, you're going. Yeah. They grabbed her because she didn't want to go. She was scared, right? Mm-hmm. She couldn't walk, right? She was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
They basically picked her up and carried her down the aisle, and I was behind them,
Wow.
So yeah, there was only one elderly person on this plane.
Okay.
So yeah, but the other thing that happened is one of the ferries or rescue boats hit the front of the plane and shook the plane.
Oh.
And because he was backing out for the next ferry to come in. I mean, they were just going right, just kept going because it was chaotic.
Yeah.
The term I used with Katie Kirk that night on CBS was controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Where things are happening quickly, but no one got out of their heads. Right? Everybody kept their heads, right?
Yeah.
But so what happened to me is I felt water go up my back, and so Gregg, that was the first time I realized how cold this water was. I felt it, right?
Yeah.
Like I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's when I jumped in and swam to the closest boat that I could find. It was into that wing, and I tell people I was the longest 15-yard swim of my life.
Yeah.
Because not only was the water 36 degrees and I was fully clothed, but there was also jet fuel in the water. And that's why I wear glasses today, because I got jet fuel in my eyes from that swim. And I had blurred vision when I got home, and they found black spots all through my eyes. So they had put some corrective glasses on so I could at least focus in. So that's how I got off.
Wow.
And then you have a whole other story, right? Now you got to survive.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Go ahead.
Babe in arms I saw in the film too.
Yep. Yeah, most definitely.
So, and that's amazing. There was only one elderly person that needed a wheelchair because there can often be several, and there can often be many babies or little kids. So,
Well, interesting you asked that question, Wendy, because I had a few weeks after this, I was actually in Orlando, and at that time, US Airways was taking care of me, so I was flying first class, and which meant and the captains wanted to talk to me, and I wanted to talk to them. And one of the captains made a point, which really was, I mean, it was an amazing distinction that I had not thought about, because we were standing in, I don't know if you've ever been to Orlando, the airport in Orlando. If you haven't, why do people go to Orlando? Theme parks, right? Vacations. So it's elderly people, kids, families, right? And a few business people.
mm,
What kind of people fly out of New York? Business people.
business people.
With a few scattered in, right? So he said the passenger makeup of that plane had everything to do with that outcome.
Mhm.
Because he said, if this happens down here, and I could put this plane down in like a lake or the ocean, doesn't matter. You got too many variables. And then he said, remember that movie Flight with Denzel Washington? And I did. He said, because if you haven't seen that movie, it's when he was drinking in the cockpit. That's what the movie was about. But it was going from Orlando to Atlanta. And when he started going down, everybody started freaking out, the kids and the older people. So the passenger makeup of that plane had everything to do with that outcome.
Wow.
I think that's part of why it is appropriately called the Miracle on the Hudson, because wasn't it 155 people total, including the 5-person crew?
That's
And
correct. That's correct.
I mean,
And I tell people there was a lot of miracles that happened. I mean, you had the right captain. You had the right passenger makeup. You had the right passengers in the right seats. I'll give you an example. And a couple of times people say, I don't understand that, but we had 2 guys on the exit doors. Okay, 2 guys on the exit doors. Those doors weigh 44 pounds. Now, not that a female couldn't do it, but you at least had 2 big guys who could at least hold the door and get it out. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying a female couldn't do it. All I'm saying is we had the right guys on the door, because just think if one of those doors doesn't get open.
Right.
Now you got one exit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got all these little miracles added up, right? The ferries were there in less than 2 minutes. Amazing. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Right?
How long did the whole egress take, of getting everybody out and on boats?
I was the last passenger out, and I was out in 7 minutes.
That's amazing.
Captain was the last person out.
Right.
Whenever he went out, I don't know the time for him. I know mine was 7 minutes.
Okay.
It wasn't so much the Coast Guard responding, because I know the air traffic controller, once Captain Sully said we're going to the river. We're going to the river. I know at that point they called for boats, and it was the ferry boats. That's who was there.
Look at there's another miracle, Wendy, that I got to know the CEO of the ferries, the New York Waterway, before he passed away. And if you know anything about the ferries, now I've learned a lot about the ferries. They were just getting ready for their runs. Because that's what they do. They basically are water taxis, right, going back and forth, New York, New Jersey. So fortunately, this happened at 3:27 p.m.
Oh, they were for rush hour.
Right during rush hour, and so the ferries are queued up. So the CEO and one of the captains made a call: go there and divert.
Wow!
So they came from New York and New Jersey, right? Wow. I mean, you talk about there's miracles upon miracles, right? That just happen in the right sequence, right? Because everything, I think a lot of life is sequencing, right? You can have things that happen in the wrong sequence and it goes to disaster.
Right.
But everything happens in the right sequence. Look what happens.
Yeah. So did you speak to the captain afterwards?
Not that day, no. Mm-hmm. He and I, it's interesting. He and I did speak probably about for 3 weeks. We were on CBS together in Good Morning America, an early show together.
Okay.
That was the first time. But then, we were both on the 5-year anniversary. We were both interviewed by CBS, and then we were there CBS together. Then he and I shared the stage at Illinois State University a couple years later.
Oh.
And interestingly, he wanted to go first. So I told him, hey, it's great. I need a backup band. And
Right.
it's
He
hard to get him
opened,
to laugh. It's hard to get him to laugh, but I got a little chuckle out of that one.
right. You're like a
Yeah.
comedian, he opened for you. Yeah.
He opened for me, right?
Right.
Yeah. I said, you want to be the star or you be the talent? Which one do you want to be? The star or the talent, right?
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
yeah.
So they ended up making a movie out of this experience. And do you have any thoughts about it?
I was very honored to be small part of that. I mean, we knew something was going on, right? Because there's a private Yahoo group for all the passengers and crew.
Okay.
It's a closed group contained, right? So we knew something was going on, but no one was talking a lot about it, right?
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, one Friday or there's a Wednesday afternoon because we went on Friday. I get a call from one of the producers of the movie. Can you be here a Friday from 11 to 11? And I'm like, yeah, I'll make it happen. So yes, I was very, very honored to be a part of Marvel. I thought the movie, I mean, Clint Eastwood, I have highest regard for Clint Eastwood. I mean, the guy at that point was 85 years old, still doing movies. He's now at 90 something, right? Still doing movies.
Yeah.
But the way he does movies, and I mean, just the way he approaches it, it was amazing to watch, right? I was very blessed to be, I had 3 little cameos, which I was very honored. But I think the movie did as well as they could to keep to the story. Okay. And I have to remind people, the story wasn't about the plane crash. It was about the journey of the captain.
Yes.
See, people think it's not about the plane crash. It's not about us.
Right.
It's about him, his journey, right? We're a small part of it. Mm-hmm. So I think all of us were honored to be a part of it. And I think, like I said, Tom Hanks did an amazing job. Mm-hmm. He hit his personality perfectly,
Really? Wow.
I mean, you just see him smile, right? I mean, it's just the guy's stoic, right? And I tell people, you don't want somebody happy and giggly in the front seat, right? And I want someone with gray hair or no hair. I don't want that nice brown coif going over, right? No, none of that. We want someone old who's been there for a while.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the captain had some unique experience too. I mean, it was not just the military background, but that he had flown gliders so much. So like you said, there just were so many little pieces of everything.
He doesn't get enough credit for that, Wendy. And I talk about that, and a lot of, yes, he had the military. Yes, he had Vietnam experience. He told me, he said he didn't take any bullets in Vietnam, but he was in that era, right? He was there. But yeah, the gliding experience, because you had to glide that thing for 60 to 80 seconds, 90 seconds. And he's never had glided an Airbus. He's never glided an Airbus. Yeah. But it's the same thought process, right? Mm-hmm. Keeping the wing in the window. Because if you look how he did it, as he was going down and gliding it, he had to get over the bridge. So he had to lift it to get over the bridge, which then took drag. So he had to get the nose back down. That's why we went down so quick right afterwards. Yeah, that's the background, Wendy, of how to glide an Airbus over a bridge. I learned.
Now we know, so we could do it now.
Next time you do it, next time you need to glide an Airbus or a Boeing, now you know how to do it.
Right. It's Superman stuff. It really boggles the mind. And I think that's what was part of so interesting when I re-listened to the recording of the air traffic controller with him, because it's like your brain can't catch up to it. When he was first telling them that there was bird strike and that he'd lost engines, and there's this discussion. I don't want to call it casual, but just so calm and so focused.
Matter of fact,
level-headed.
Okay, I can't make it back to LaGuardia. Can I go to Teterboro? And my brain's going, you got no engines. It's just hard for your brain to catch up with things. And that banking, when I looked at the diagram of what the flight pattern was, I mean, that banking was, talk about pull a hard left.
Yeah. Yep.
It was.
Yeah, because you look exactly, because the normal, if you've never been on LaGuardia, the normal flight pattern is they go out over the ocean and bank left, right, or right, depending on where you're going, south or north. And he had a hard bank left, right? And I tell people one of the things that amazes me about, and he and I have had this discussion about, within a matter of seconds, had to make a decision. I mean, he had 4 options he had to go through. You named a couple of them. First option actually was the ocean. The ocean was right there, but no one to rescue you, right?
Right.
Second option was what? Teterboro. Too many big buildings.
Yeah.
Third option, LaGuardia. Don't know where we can get back. Fourth option, there's a river. Do boom, 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 boom. And the decision, because he knew he had to make a decision quickly. He didn't have time to mess around. Whatever call he was going to make, he had to make, right? And it was proven, if you saw the movie, and the NTSB, they had to do their due diligence, but there's no way that plane could have got back to LaGuardia. No way.
Right.
No way. We all been dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And didn't they actually switch who was flying? Because I thought that the
First officer was flying the plane.
First officer was originally flying the plane.
That's right.
But he was trying to restart the engine, so they switched over, and Sully took over flying at that point when he was trying to restart.
You've done your homework. That's correct. Jeff Skiles was flying the plane. It was his first flight on Airbus 320.
Wow.
And it happens, and then when he's trying to restart, and the captain said, "My plane," right? And that's when he took over. And then Skiles' job at that point was go through the book. What do we do, right? And I try to tell people he doesn't get enough credit because he had to keep calm and go through the book of what the things that we had to get done, right, in a matter of seconds, right?
Wow.
So I mean, this is all about teamwork and leadership. I mean, there's a lot of stories about this, but I mean, I always say that God's hands were all over us that day on all fronts.
Yeah. Well, let's shift into that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the spiritual impact it had on you personally. So obviously you felt the spiritual impact, the miraculous things going on while you're in the plane. But after you left the plane, how did your life change? What happened?
It changed dramatically. It's so here's what happened. I got home. Of course, the things were going wild, right? I was on every TV show in the world and all this stuff. But I was going to go to church that weekend. I was committed to go, and I actually went to another church first because the guy begged me to come to his church first before I went to my church. I said, okay, I'll come to the 8 o'clock service, and I broke down, and it was a mess. I went to my church, and I was sitting there, and everybody started coming to talk to me, right? But one guy came up to me. He was the head of men's breakfast. He said, "Dave, will you speak at men's breakfast next Sunday?" I said, "No problem, man. 50 old guys eating pancakes? Got it." I did not know they invited half of Charlotte. 500-600 people show up, and they run out of pancakes. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. Right? They actually moved it from a little room to the gym. We had and our church has a big gym.
Yeah.
They moved it to the gym. So in our gym on the stage, it's got curtain. I went behind the curtain and said, "God, give me something to say, man. Just give it to me now. Whatever it is, just give it to me." And he gave me something to say.
Okay.
So I get done speaking. Two men wanted to talk to me. One was from Bank of America, and one was from Wachovia, the big banks, right? Have people on the plane. That's no big deal. But as I was speaking with him, I looked up and looked in the back. I remember I'm at one end of the gym, so I'm at the other end. I'm looking towards the back. This older lady locked me, found my eye, locked me in. Starts walking all the way around, comes up and interrupts this conversation, walks right into it and grabs my left arm. And I jump because we're a week after a plane crash, and I'm a little jumpy, right? I'm a little sensitive, right? But she looked me in the eye and said something that changed not only that day, but changed my direction, my life. She said, "I don't believe in God. I don't believe in miracles. But you are physical evidence that there is a God and he does miracles. Thank you. Thank you." She looked me in the eye one more time, let my arm go, walked away. And if I looked down, I saw two men bawling in front of me. Two of these guys are crying. I don't know what's going on. My minister witnessed this whole thing. He was over behind me witnessing this whole thing. So I looked around like, what just happened? And that's when I realized what happened to me on January 15th had impacted somebody who never believed in God or miracles, but now believes there's a God who does miracles because I'm physical evidence. And that was the moment that took me a different direction. That spurred me because I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what to do. But, I tell people, God just wants you to do something. He'll figure out the plan. It's not your plan anyway. He'll figure out the plan. You just got to take action. So I did. That's what it all started for me.
Take the first steps and the path will appear.
Exactly. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. So that moment with that older lady, she, like I said, I told people she's about 80, 90 years old at least, little old lady. Never saw her again. Never saw her again in our church. Right.
Wow.
So it's either she just showed up or maybe she was just an angel.
Right.
Right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But we never saw her again in our church. I know that.
Job.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
really, really, really cool.
Especially when your minister witnesses it,
Yeah.
you know, because we did an article. We did an article. I mentioned for Rick Warren, the minister out in San Diego. His purpose, it's his mission, purpose, mission, something.
Hmm.
And I said, I'll do the interview, but I want you to interview my minister likewise. I want him to give him his perspective of what happened. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He shared this. Right?
Yeah.
He shared my faith story, but he also shared what he witnessed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a miracle. Wendy, you're exactly right. It still is a miracle.
Wow. Wow. So has this shifted your career now? I mean, is this or is this what you do now?
Yeah.
Speaking for a living? Is that, yeah.
It took me a couple of years to get out. I mean, I was working for a company making pretty decent money, right? I mean, and I had something a lot of people don't have. It's called a wife. And, wives like certain things, right?
Yeah.
So I had to figure a game out how to make all this work, right? So it took me about 3 or 4 years, right, to figure this thing out. I got out, and I've been doing this since I've been speaking around the world. I've been authored personally 3 books, co-author of 1 book. I have my own magazine, so I can now get other people's miracle stories out.
Oh, wow.
It's called Moments Matter, and I publish it every quarter. And I first it was just about my stories. But then I said, you know what? I can actually reveal other people's moments stories, their miracle moment stories. And that's what the magazine does. So I'm very honored to do that likewise and speak and coach and work with people.
Very, very cool.
Dave, what age were your children? You mentioned you have 4 children. What ages were they back in 2009?
Great question. Back in that, they were 17, 15, 12, and 12 and 7.
Okay, so teenagers
Young.
at elementary school, they were young. So you had four in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I had to build this what we talked about out here. But I tell one of the biggest benefits out of this, and there's a benefit out of it, and one of the biggest blessings out of this was my relationship with my eldest daughter. Now, I don't know, I tell people, I don't know if you ever had a 17-year-old daughter. She was definitely did not like her parents, say it that way. We were having struggles, right? But she was the one who got the message I left on the voicemail that I've been in a plane crash. And I did that from the ferry. Someone put their phone up, and I got the message, "This is your dad, I've been in a plane crash." She got the voicemail. She's the one that told the family. So she all of a sudden had to be responsible, right? And then she got to be in People magazine with me, so she had street cred. She was cool. And I also realized that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. That changed our relationship. Because I don't know if you have a 17-year-old daughter in the past, but
We
haven't.
Both of us.
Yeah, it's, you're not the most popular guy in town. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So
You're
changed our relationship with her.
You're definitely not cool. That's for sure.
No, I was definitely not cool. I was an idiot, right? Stupid. Whatever word you want to use at that point in time, I was.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So how else? I mean, has there been any other experiences you've had along the way, or tell me about the new experiences that you've had, as a result of all this, as things kind of picked up, through the years. What new things have been going on?
Well, I've been very blessed. I do a lot of work with the American Red Cross, help them raise money, and that's a blessing for me because it's a way I can give back to those folks who were there for us that day. Oh. And so part of my proceeds from my first book go back to the Red Cross, but that opened up a whole different opportunity for me likewise because I was asked to speak at their national event, and it happened to be at the Supreme Court. And, Justice Anthony Kennedy is the one who sponsored me to speak and be there. So getting to meet a Supreme Court justice and is amazing. But more amazing was when I got there, he took me back in his quarters. He said, "Give me a 3-minute version of what happened." So I'm having a one-on-one with a Supreme Court justice in his quarters. I tell people that's like, so we came out, they took a picture of us. And I show the picture. I'm like, wow, like an idiot looking. He's just really cool looking, right? But I was like, those kind of things. I get the opportunity to be around people that I can impact, and who want to hear not only it happened, but how I think people are really looking for miracles. I mean, the world's such in chaos right now, right? For whatever reason we talk about, people are looking for certainty right now. And right now, the only certain thing is God. I look at it. I mean, and my mentor told me this. We were talking one day. I had a mentor for 14 years who was an amazing man. And we just lost a child. We lost our son. And he and I were talking. And he told me he lost his son in Korea, in the Korean War. And he said, I had the money. I could have got him out, right? But every man had to do a service. Every man had to serve, right? But he said something. He said, the same God who started this thing, the same God who was with Jesus, same God who was with my son, same God who's with your son, right? That's the only certain thing we got is one thing is gone. So if you can draw upon that faith, that you know what? Life is not pixie dust and sunshine. Everybody's going to go through what I call their personal plane crash. Something's going to happen, right? I mean, you may have cancer, you may go to a car wreck, you may lose a loved one. Something's going to happen. But just knowing that you have that one piece of certainty called God and or Jesus, depending on what your faith is, right? You'll get through it. You'll get through it.
Wow. One other aspect of your life, I think that has changed is you're leading a life of service. Speaking of service, you were like most people, working a job, trying to keep a roof over your head and your family's head and all that stuff. And now, it's shifted to now you're trying to help others and show them that miracles are real,
I mean, it started with the Red Cross, Gregg, but it's really morphed into what's happened. It started 4 years ago, actually this week, 4 years ago, when I went back into the Hudson River to swim with the Navy SEALs to raise money for the Navy SEALs. Because this was right after 2020, COVID. The suicide rate was out of control. The latest number was just put out is 42 service people commit suicide a day. It was 23 back in 2020. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to raise money for awareness and make sure. So I went back into the Hudson River to swim, which I hadn't done for 40 years, to raise money. And there was two parts of that. I wanted to raise money, but I also wanted to show my kids, you got to face your fears. So I went back and swam 3.1 miles in the Hudson River with the Navy SEALs. I've done this 4 straight times, 2 times in New York, 2 times in Coronado Beach with special operations, because I think we're here for service. We're here to give, right? Yeah. And and people laugh at me when I tell them this, but I just said, have you ever seen the movie Doctor Strange? And I love Marvel movies. I love that stuff. Yeah. But there was a scene there when the Ancient One is ready to go to her greater being, and Doctor Strange is standing there, right, talking to her. Said, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. And she said, looked at her and said, Stephen, you still don't get it. It's not about you. And all of a sudden, the mindset shifted, right? Mm-hmm. We're here for something bigger than us.
Right.
Right. And yeah. I think I tell people that story, and it's like, some people get it or some people don't get it. It's like, but all this is not about us. I told someone the other day, this is not, because her husband's got prostate cancer and he's going to have to go back in, and said, but I said, this is God's plan. It's going to happen whether God wants it, it's going to happen. Right. So I said, put faith in God. It may not work out the way you want it to work out, but it is God's plan. And if we keep believing that, all this happens for a reason and a purpose. It'll serve us.
Right. Wow.
And tell us, Dave, for any listeners not connecting the dots, what was the role of the Red Cross? How did that become so important to you?
Thank you for asking. So I had 3 Red Cross experiences that day. First one was when they got me to the shore in New Jersey because I couldn't walk. I had to carry me. There was a Red Cross person there with a blanket that helped carry me to the triage center. Second, when I got to the hospital, they took all my clothes off, right? They stripped me. I had nothing left. And all of a sudden I'm going to be on CBS and all this. I had nothing to wear. Somebody from the Red Cross got some, I tell them, really ugly sweats to wear and not really attractive, but someone got me clothing. Which, I mean, I tell people, when you don't have any food, you don't have any money, you have no clothes, you have nothing. Someone gets you a stitch of clothing. And the third point was when I got back to Charlotte, the CEO of the Red Cross in Charlotte was with my family, supporting them.
Oh, wow.
So we had 3 Red Cross experiences in less than 15, 16 hours.
Wow.
So that's why I get back to the Red Cross.
quick question. Did you lose your wallet, by the way?
The wallet, I actually got the wallet back.
Okay.
Because what happened was all the luggage, they recovered the luggage from the bottom of the Hudson as much as they could.
Yeah.
And my wallet was in my briefcase, and the briefcase was at the bottom of the Hudson. So about 8 months later, I get this package, right, with a couple things in it. And it was the wallet, right?
I thought you
And
put your wallet down your pants.
I did. But when they took all my clothes off with the wallet,
Oh, they put it in your briefcase.
they put it in a briefcase,
Right.
right? Or put it in a bag, which went to there. So I asked how I got it back.
Okay.
Yes, it had no money in it, had no credit cards, but
Right.
that's all right. Someone needed that money more than I needed it, right?
Right. Wow. 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 Well, is there anything anything else you want to mention, Dave? Any big message you want people to know uh, about your experience and your just overall takeaway from this?
Yeah, I think I've referenced it a little bit earlier, and I'll give them a quick background. So, yeah, I mentioned earlier about don't judge people unless you know the backstory. How that really was my enlightenment around this whole situation is it was like 6 weeks later after the Miracle on the Hudson. Many of the passengers and the crew, we were on ABC Good Morning America, right, doing our thing. And most people know there's a green room in the back where they hold people, right, doing their thing back there. So we were back after we were on the TV show and we were just talking, and one of the passengers got very vocal. Let's say it that way. Got very boisterous. He wasn't happy, and I thought was, what's wrong with this guy? We survived the plane crash,
right,
and we're on national TV. I mean, how bad can it be? And then what I found out about a week later is that he was going through a divorce and he lost his job. So he associated the plane crash with devastation. And I associated with a blessing. Same situation. Right. So I realized at that point, how quick have I judged people in the past?
Yeah.
And I said, if I can change one thing out of this whole thing, not judge people until I know their backstory, how could that change my life? And I've been hard at work at that since that moment. And that's opened all these. I really believe that's opened all these avenues because I don't judge people. Right. I mean, and my kids sort of said, well, Grandpa was sort of judgmental about these hippie freaks back in the 60s and all this. I mean, my dad, I said, you got to remember when Grandpa was born and raised. He was born in the 30s. Right. And in the 60s, was a bunch of hippie freaks. Right.
Right.
So you got to judge people. You can't judge people on your values right now. I mean, he grew up in a certain way. But I changed to say, don't be judgmental. And if I could be, I don't care if you're black, white, purple. I don't care. I don't care if you're gay or lesbian. I don't care if you're a good person. Unless, like I said, Martin Luther King said was right. Judge people on the content of their character.
Right.
If you do that one thing, it'll change your entire life.
Well, you brought up something really interesting too. It's all about perspective. You went through an experience that you came out the end of it and you thought it was a miracle, and some other guy thought it was a disaster. I mean, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean, we all have different stories, right? And and I talk about the meaning you attach to something that produces the emotions of your life, and emotion is your life.
Yeah,
I guess that's what I talk about. The meaning he has devastation, so no wonder his emotions were the way they were.
Yeah,
mine were blessings. So I feel like I'm just grateful to be above ground, or better yet, above water.
Right? Yeah.
So
yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has just been really such a thought-provoking, incredible, unique conversation and perspective. I just so appreciate you sharing your time with us, Dave, and some wisdom. And definitely recommend people check out what you're doing. What is the best way to find your? Do you have a website? What's the best way to find your books?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I tell you the best way is go to LinkedIn because every week I drop new content out about some new distinctions that I've learned and been using. So check me out on LinkedIn, David Sanderson on LinkedIn, and just let us know. And I engage with everybody, so there's no filters, as you could probably tell from what we talked about. There's no filters.
Right.
It's out there, right? So I'd be honored anybody who'd like to learn more about what we do and how we serve people.
I'll put I'm on LinkedIn, so I'll find you. I'll make a connection with you. I'll put your LinkedIn link in our description on our broadcasts for
thank you very much.
Podcasts and YouTube. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, Wendy.
All right. Well, please visit. So let's just segue from that. And again, thank you to Dave. And Dave, please stay with us and we'll just wrap up here. And you're welcome to visit my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And you'll find out about the upcoming events that I have there, including doing a live channeling with the Ascended Masters and Angels, group past life regression, and how to connect with your guide. I think a lot of that ties in with what Dave's been talking about, maybe using some different languaging to it. And my latest book, Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn, is available in audio book format, as well as paperback and on Kindle. And you can find it on Amazon and Audible. And we can go to the next slide, Gregg.
Yes, my book, The Gratitude Curve, is available on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, also my website, greggkirk.com. And it's about my healing story and a miracle I experienced that, very much like Dave, brought me to a life of service. So if you'd like to read about that, please go to either of those venues. Thank you.
Fantastic. And please join us on May 12th, which is going to be the 5th anniversary of the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. And everything is recorded and saved, archived for you at wakingupspiritually.com. And there is a search button, so you can put in whatever topic that you need help with there. And that's what Gregg and I are here for, is to just help normalize these experiences. As Dave said, the plane crashes of your life. Because waking up spiritually, it's not always gradual or easy or pretty. It can be it can really just shake you to your core. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got that linked here. And thank you for rating and reviewing us on Apple iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit Gregg at his website, which is Gregg, Kirk, KIRK.com. And you'll find all the different ways to connect and work with Gregg. Highly recommend sessions with Gregg, and visit my website at wendyrosewilliams.com to see how I might be of service. So thank you all for being here. It was such a pleasure. And again, Dave, thank you for taking the time and for being who you are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Bye-bye.